this. Okay. Okay. So in order for everyone to benefit from seeing the video on, oops, here's Hannah. So we'll first look at the video about the next assignment, which is due on October 24th, just in case people have questions that others can benefit from, or if something is vague, I can clarify it. Now, hopefully I can pull this up. Let me see. Oh, I think this is it. Let's see if this works. I've actually never shown a screencast in Zoom. So let's see if this works. It should. Can you guys see? I can't make it bigger. Okay. I can see myself. Can you all see the screen? It says assignment number 2 explained.
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
Okay. Oh, this light. Right. My apologies for the fact that this one says 2020. It is the same due date, October 24th. Okay. Okay, hi, TESL 341. Hope you guys are doing well. I want to give you the rundown on the 3 options for assignment number 2. Because there are 3 options, I want to make sure that you know they are due, whichever one you choose is due on October 4th, the 24th by 11:59 p.m. So the first choice, option 1 is the code switching assignment, and option 2 and option 3 are ethnography options. Okay, I'm going to briefly explain each of those. Okay. So the first is a code switching assignment. On this assignment sheet, first I give you some background, and there are some readings. Keep in mind that in that folder for assignment number 2, there are supplementary resources, but in particular on this assignment sheet, I give you some quotes from scholarly research about code switching. So I think these are helpful to refer to as you work on this project. The next section details the many reasons why people code switch. Some people assume it's because you don't have the word in your second language or second dialect that you need. You can't access it, so you code switch. And that's not always the case. There are several reasons why people code switch. So here we have reasons A through J. So you're going to want to look at those different reasons because you're going to use them in this project. Really interesting. So what you're going to do is observe a fully bilingual person, age 16 or older, conversing with someone who shares a non-English mother tongue. Please try to choose someone who in fact code switches. For instance, you might observe 2 people whose first language is Spanish or Polish or Arabic or Mandarin or anything, but who also speak English. Okay, so you should observe a conversation for 30 to 40 minutes. This can be a phone conversation or an in-person conversation. You should tape record the conversation so that you can listen to it later. Now, keep in mind that all of these projects may be more challenging or may look different because we're in a pandemic. So I want you to be safe, whatever you do. I don't want you to go to a restaurant or, on a bus and put yourself in harm's way. Okay, keep that in mind. So this conversation can be in person or over the phone. You should not be part of the conversation. It should be two different people. And if it's on the phone, you only need to have access to the person on your side who you are recording with their permission. Okay? So the paper will look like this, and of course I want you to read this in more detail. But part 1 is informant background. Gives you a lot of demographics. Part 2 is speaking analysis, which is an acronym developed by linguist Del Himes. And you're going to detail different aspects of this conversation and the setting that you're observing. Okay, so S is for setting and scene, P is for participants, E is for ends or the goals of the conversation, A is for act sequence, K is for key, I is for instrumentalities, N is for norms, and G is for genre. Okay, so next to each of those sections, I explain what that is. Part 3 is going to be your transcription and analysis. If you end up having a lot of language that goes beyond 2 double-spaced pages, I only need 2 double-spaced pages. That's enough for you to use. That's enough meat. You don't have to go beyond that, okay? You're going to go through your transcript to identify places in which the informant has code switched. In other words, wherever you see code switching, please circle or underline. Your next step will be to meet with your informant to look over the transcript. In each instance of code switching, ask your informant why they code switched. Don't give them the list, the A, B, C, D, E that I just showed you. Just ask them why, and they'll use their own language, their own explanation, and then you figure out which category it is, okay? And in section 4 is just a discussion. Reflect on and discuss your experience observing, transcribing, and annotating. There's lots of questions here that you can address in your discussion section. Okay, and as always, if you have questions, let me know. Okay, let's go to the next one, which is option 2. Okay, so that is ethnographic interview. Okay. I have some background here. What is ethnography? And this is something we'll be going over this week, code switching and ethnography. Okay, so you want to select an informant, and that should be someone who came to the United States from a non-English speaking country after age 16, or someone who came to the United States between ages 7 and 11. Okay? Tells you what you need to do to prepare for the interview and conducting the interview. Let's get down to the paper. I'm not going to, if you're interested in this one, please read the whole thing. But this is how your paper should look. The first section should be ethnographic methods. Okay? Here you let the reader know how you chose your informant, what you told the informant about your study, how you went about designing the questions, and on and on. This part 2 is ethnographic data, which is basically demographic data about the participant. And I have some bullet points here. If you have some additional demographic data that you'd like to include, that's fine. Section 3 is ethnographic data life story. Here's the juicy fun part. Tell your informant's life story, please, from the beginning. In the course of them telling you their story, try to elicit from the informant how their culture intersects or doesn't intersect with American culture, and find out what conflicts these issues might present. Okay? And there's an example. I think it's actually on this sheet. You can read underneath. Part 4 is your ethnographic analysis. This is the final section. Discuss what you have discovered in relation to what you will have learned in class about immigrant identity and language identity. Also, meaningfully infuse anything else you have learned from previous weeks in the course. Okay, and here's the ethnography example that might be helpful. It's rather long, but it is a good example. You can get some ideas. Okay, and last but not least is your option 3. Open, option 3, open. Okay. Right. That's option 2, I'm sorry. Option 3. I think my hand must have slipped last time. Wait. Oh my Lord. Okay, here we go. Option 3 is also ethnography, but instead of looking at an individual, you're looking at an institutional culture. Keep in mind, with COVID, some of my suggestions may not be good. I really like this one because you're looking at places and settings that you may frequent all the time, like maybe the supermarket. Places that you don't really stop to listen, perhaps, about the way people communicate. So this assignment choice involves a look at the linguistic culture of an institution. The word institution should be thought of broadly. For instance, the following can be considered institutions: bank, post office, social service agency, restaurant, bookstore, lobby of an apartment building, hospital, bus stop, train station, airport, student union, church, elevator, city bus. And a lot of these we have to cross off. I can't send you to a funeral, birthday party, or a wedding. Perhaps you can go to a barbershop, but I would consider some of the new venues where we communicate. Maybe a specific online meeting or something. We may need to switch gears. But I want you to read through this. There's a lot here. There's an example of an ethnography, an institutional ethnography, where someone looks at the linguistic ethnography of caseworker-client interaction in a homeless shelter, just to get an idea of kind of what it is. But the format should look like this, between 4 and 5 pages, with an introductory paragraph telling us which institution you chose and why you chose it. Describe the setting where you're recording the discourse. And you have several paragraphs that simply include one piece of discourse, word for word, verbatim, and then you're analyzing the discourse. So you're doing that for paragraph 2, paragraph 3, paragraph 4, paragraph 5, and paragraph 6. And then in paragraph 7 is your conclusion and summary findings. What do you think these pieces of discourse and analysis might say about the institution you're examining? What other commentary do you have about the process you have undertaken? Okay, that's kind of a macro version of option 2. Okay, so all of that is in a folder in D2L, marked assignment number 2. Okay, let me come out of this. How do I get out of it? Oh, 2 people came in. Okay. So Clarissa and Amanda, I apologize. I was showing something and did not see that you entered. So let me mark you here.
It's okay.
Okay, here but late, but I'm glad you're here. Okay, are there questions that was a lot of information. On the option number 3, I was extra cautious because when I taped that, it was last year this time. I think things are a little bit safer, although I still wouldn't send you to a funeral or wedding, or what was the other one? I can't remember, but I think if you practice precautions with your mask and everything, I think it's fine to do it in a barbershop, a beauty salon, even maybe church if it's not too long, and a bus stop, coffee shop. I think there's more possibilities this year. Okay. Any questions? No? Usually people ask, can I use a relative? That's not my preference, but if you can't find anyone else, that is fine, but you still have to adhere to, every single item in the assignment that you choose. I think sometimes when people choose a relative, they assume that their reader knows the things that you know about your relative, and that's not so. Okay. Oh, Clarissa, you have your hand up.
Yes, I was just wondering if we were discussing the next assignment.
Yes, I'm sorry. Yes, we were discussing the next assignment, and I don't know if you had a chance to look at the video that I had put up last week. And if so, did you have any specific questions? We just looked at that video again, by the way. Yeah. Some of the information that you'll use in some of the options will be covered this week. For instance, Delheim's speaking acronym, we'll be covering that either today or next time. So, no questions? Okay. Well, if you don't start late now, we're already in October, it's already October 5th. So make a decision on which option. And if you're choosing option 1 or option 2, decide who you might ask, because you might have someone in mind and they may say no, right? So try to decide that soon. And then along the way, if you have questions, please, please, please reach out. Okay. Okay. Let me pull up the PowerPoint. I can usually see some faces on the side and I can't see anyone. This is kind of disconcerting. Okay, so I thought that we would discuss a few of the things from last week. Like I said earlier, I read comments through like maybe midday Sunday or Sunday morning. I didn't read Sunday night. So I know I didn't read everything that you posted, and I will do that. And I responded to many of you. You had some really, really thoughtful comments, but I wanted to do a little of this face-to-face before we move on to more content. Okay. The math lesson with Moises. Many of you pointed out some of the things that you noticed, and it was really good observation skills. I want to know more about what you want to know more of. Like this was just a snapshot, right? It was just a short video. So if this were a situation where you were responsible for maybe helping the teacher, what is it that you want to know more about based on what you viewed? And what more do you want to know about the student? And I have a particular reason for asking that question. I don't know how many of you are going to take TESL 330, but in that class, I have an assignment that requires students to create a home language survey. Home language surveys are required in the United States, and some states do them better than others. Most states do a terrible job. Like, this is an opportunity to know much more about a student's language experience, education experience, what happens at home, culture. Okay, so I am going to stop sharing so I can see your beautiful faces while we talk about Moises and the teacher and the class. Okay. What did you think? What jumped out at you, and what did you want to know more about that you couldn't discern from watching the video?
Um, when I watched the video, I noticed how at the beginning, it focused on like Moises' perspective, like the audio changed, the words kind of drifted off the page for him, the letters. And then I noticed that at the end, it was him who had to go to the teacher and ask for help to get the test in Spanish.
Mm-hmm. That was very revealing, wasn't it? And I think that, changing the audio and then the visual with the letters and with the blocks,
Oh yeah, the
like,
blocks.
yeah, that really literally put us in his shoes. I thought that was effective. I actually want to see more of that elsewhere. There's a video, trying to think. Those of you who had 340 with me, did I show you a video with a couple, a man and a woman? They're like, it looks like they're on a date. Thank you, Evelyn. It looks like they're on a date and they're talking and you think that it's English, but then you realize it's not. Did any of you take a class with me where I show that?
I remember me and
No.
Clarissa took the 340 class with you last semester, but I don't think I remember that certain video.
Yeah, I think sometimes I show it and sometimes I don't. And if I have time in this class, I will. That's another effective way to put yourself in the shoes of someone who's learning English. It's done well, and it tricks you into thinking they're speaking English because the phonologies sound like English. And you're trying to put everything together based on paralinguistics, their facial expressions, their hand movements, their body language. It's fascinating, but you're right, Evelyn. That really helps you to see what Moises sees and hears.
I also like after watching the video, I was curious to find out what happened. So I looked it up on YouTube and I finished, I think it was 12 minutes.
Okay, yeah.
But at the end, the teacher wasn't able to get the Spanish version of the test. And he was actually denied to have the dictionary to help him out. And I thought that was like heartbreaking because he looked like helpless and lost.
The dictionary is not cheating. And people have the impression that the dictionary is cheating. Like, English language learners, they really want to be at the point where they're not using the dictionary anymore. But the dictionary is simply a support, like other supports that we provide as teachers. And that's the right word, Evelyn. Heartbreaking. Thank you. Other comments?
I was just going to say, I think it's especially upsetting that, he wouldn't be allowed to use a dictionary, even when there's more limitations beyond that, like how confusing the concept of the city block was. And, if he had just looked up blocks in the dictionary, it still may not have conveyed that same concept. And it's just, even putting him even further at, need of a support.
I agree. The unique, well, I don't want to say it's completely unique, but English has loads and loads of words that have multiple meanings. Like it's very, very common. And so I applaud him for understanding some version of block, and the teacher should have the foresight, if not during class, then during a previous class to do some pre-teaching. There's something that happened in that class that really bothered me. I want to see if anyone picked up on it. Well, there's a lot of things that bother me. But I want to hear. Anyone else have any comments?
Was it the laughter that the kids, like they made fun of him for just saying the word 40 3
Right.
times?
You know, that was not the first week of class. And it's very telling that the students had that kind of response. And it tells me that the teacher has not done enough to build community. I mean, that's so vital. It's the foundation for everything that a teacher does going forward. So yeah, that bothered me. And did you notice that there was one boy who was being reprimanded for it, when in fact, the whole class practically was laughing. And I thought there were resources in that classroom that could be capitalized on, like the little girl who was supporting him. That was a positive. Like, is there some way that the teacher could create some kind of structure where that is encouraged and where the little girl is congratulated? I don't know. There's just so much opportunity, I think, that the teacher did not see. Now, teaching is a hard job, and it looked like she had a really full class, but disappointing. Okay, so what are we going to talk about next? Now I realize that some of you were not able to see because the link I sent was faulty. Let me ask, did anyone not view Idris's basketball practice? Because I have the video, it's like a minute and something long.
I did not.
Okay,
Me too.
okay, I'm gonna play it now. And I apologize for that. Let's see. A second. Interesting. Oh, here it is. Okay. Okay, so for those of you who didn't watch the whole thing, this is a wonderful documentary. I happen to love documentaries. This is a documentary about African-American males who go to elite private schools in New York City for elementary school through high school. And it talks about the challenges, the opportunities, the challenges. It follows them in life. And actually you can Google to find out what these young men are doing now. I think they might be out of college now. But so the parents of Idris is one of the students. His parents are, they're middle class. I don't know how much they pay for tuition. I don't know if they pay the whole tuition or part of it, but they're very, they're financially comfortable. They send him to private school, but they also want him to be, culturally aware. They want him to be able to communicate with people of all types, including people who are in a different class than him, so low income people. So they enroll him in a basketball league, and practice takes place in the housing projects up in Harlem, I believe. So let me play this and see what you think.
Come here, bring it in. Yo, bring it in. Now listen.
Who on in the baseline?
Listen, we'll run it later. Listen, we get the press. So come right out in the press because they beat you right down the court. All right.
At my basketball team, I sometimes get made fun of. They said, "Oh, you talk like a white boy and stuff." Sometimes, like, change my voice. I go like, "Hey, y'all, what's up?" Or I change my voice. I don't talk like I talk at Dalton, so they won't make fun of me. I talk slangish or something. Turn around! Turn around! I've been lying to my parents and saying, "Oh, I don't notice that I'm changing my voice. Because I don't want them, like, they're gonna think that I'm like a coward or something."
Wait till it hits.
And I don't get made fun of at Dalton. I talk the way I usually talk. I think I fit in much better in Dalton. Because I don't have to change my voice for people not to make fun of me, and I have a lot of friends at Dalton.
They ain't got you. Let's go. Let's go. Go shake their hands. Let's go. Tell them good game. That's all. That's all. Tell them it's a good one, baby. Good job. Hello? Hello, I give him a 5, man.
Okay, very quick clip. But what do you think? What were your thoughts in watching that quick clip?
I feel like I can relate a little bit in some way. I was definitely made fun of in elementary school where like other people of color would say, "Oh, you talk white."
That's been a thing. I hate that it still goes on. Yeah, but that is the source of his pain. Did you have any coping mechanisms?
I feel like I also code switched a bit.
Mhm.
But he was saying it made him feel like a coward or something like that. And I kind of felt the same way.
Interesting. Thank you for sharing. I talked about earlier that there are many reasons to code switch, and on that assignment, it's list A through J. So there's many reasons. And of course, for Idris, it's not that he forgot a word or couldn't access a word in standard English. It was really to fit in. Yeah. Any other thoughts?
Kids are evil.
Say that again, Manny.
The kids are evil. They're bullying him because he speaks differently.
Oh, that's
No,
a
but
strong word.
no kidding. All kidding aside, I mean, it's just the whole language difference because even when I moved here to America, I got made fun of because my Spanish was different than other people's Spanish, and I didn't understand why they would make fun of me for speaking Spanish differently than there. Because of course, in Mexico, depends on what state you're from, you speak Spanish a little bit differently.
Right.
And I didn't code switch. I didn't care what they say, honestly.
Yeah, I mean, there's a whole community of linguists who would really like for teachers at an early age to be open about this and to talk about the fact that there are many ways to speak English. And no way is bad or evil. It's just different. But you know, it very rarely happens. But I was like those parents. I was like Idris's parents, where we were, you know, middle class. My kids, they never went to all white schools. Most of their schooling was like very diverse, but usually their schools were predominantly white. And I made every effort to make sure they were exposed to other groups. So like my youngest child, his preschool that he went to for 2 years was 95% Latino. All of my kids, all four, they each had to do summer camp, at least 1 year of summer camp in the hood, right? Because I wanted them to be able to navigate those spaces too, and also to not look down on people. So some parents would disagree with me, and I think it does sometimes put children in a spot, but in some ways it can toughen them. That's just my belief. But I do believe that teachers should be open about talking about varieties of English. And too often, teachers attach a value judgment, and that's problematic. Thank you for sharing, Mandy and Clarissa. Any more comments about that?
Yeah, I was just going to say it even happens within, you know, subsets of, you know, standard English speaking or native English speakers. For instance, growing up in the South in rural Appalachia, it was very much an unknown that I sounded the way that I did because everybody around me sounded the same and used the same words. And, you know, when I moved to New York, it was a very quick sort of redirect where I had to teach myself how to speak standard English because I was getting turned down for jobs and I was, you know, like having all sorts of difficulty with people understanding what I was even saying because some of the words that we use are very non-standard. So yeah.
So do you ever regret those variety of experiences, or do you think that that was good for you?
I definitely appreciate the ability to sort of navigate and, you know, in and out of it. It's actually harder to stop doing it now than I thought it would be. Just, you know, sort of trying to sound quote normal for so long. But I appreciate both forms of speaking for what they are. And, you know, it's one of those things where like, you don't realize how different it is until it's sort of brought up to you. And a friend of mine actually sent me a dictionary of Appalachian English.
Oh,
To me, it's just like, you know, we're just country and we sound wrong, but it's actually a dialect that has been studied.
yeah, a predictable dialect. And you can find dictionary, you can find Spanglish dictionaries, you can find Jewish, like urban dictionaries, you can find African American English. I mean, and they're all really, really interesting. Yeah, and it's a matter of language contact too. So like if you grew up, and I might have said this before, I apologize if I have. if you grew up when I did in New York City, your language, not maybe when I'm speaking to you now as the teacher, but your language is influenced by Puerto Rican English and Jewish English. It just is, no matter who you are. It's undeniable. But now, if I were growing up in New York City, it might be a little bit different. It's very West Indian. So people from the Caribbean. It's very Mexican. I did not know any Mexican people in New York City when I was growing up. And it's still Jewish, but it's a different generation and they sound different. And because everyone is living densely together, even if the neighborhoods are separate, not as separate as here, but you're living in a densely populated city, your language is going to be peppered by those languages, which is so fascinating to me.
I absolutely agree. My husband is also from New York, specifically Brooklyn.
Get
And
out of here.
yeah. They recently moved like about 2, 3 years ago, I believe. That's how we met. And
Oh.
so I first noticed like right away they have like quote unquote Brooklyn accent or like the New York accent.
Wow.
But like now that I'm like speaking to him every day, I feel like I'm pretty sure other people notice his accent, but I don't notice it anymore. So it's like used to it.
Yeah, you get used to it. And
Yeah.
sometimes you even take on aspects of that accent, whether it's the way they use the vowels or certain words that are used. Yep, we take it on even when we don't intend to. Wait, there's a comment in the chat. Oh, okay.
Yeah, that's just for a group chat if anybody like.
Oh, okay. Okay, good. Good. And then there was one more thing. Oh, the last thing I wanted to discuss was the article that you read about the Texas teachers. So, can anyone summarize, remind us what they were saying in the article?
So the article was basically having focused on Texas, the specific regions, how the North region, it was okay for students to code switch. And for the South region, the teachers wouldn't allow code switching.
Good.
Mainly because of like it was like Hispanic dominant and they wanted them to like, I guess, just focus on the English language instead of going back and forth.
Thank you. Okay, that's a really good summary. So the students in North Texas, there's lots of ELLs in North Texas, but it's more diverse, I think that most of them are Spanish speaking, but then you have others too. And then in South Texas, the vast majority of English language learners in the schools are from Mexico. They're Spanish speaking. So both groups of students code switch. The difference is that the teachers in the North are more accepting of it and understand it, it seems, better than the teachers in the South. Both sets of teachers have TESL credentials. So here's a difference. The percentage of Latino teachers in the South is higher. So what do you think? A lot of people said that in the discussion board said that they were surprised because Southern Texas is so close to Mexico. Why wouldn't they be more accepting, especially since most of the teachers are Latino, the ones who have the credentials? So what you think?
Well, I didn't like that actually because like I know like Texas has so many like diverse people like for us as Middle Eastern, they say like most Iraqis go to Texas, so it was like really
I think they
like
go to Houston.
yeah, but I was like,
Mhm.
yeah, I was like, when we first got here, like, my husband, he lived in New Mexico, so he was like, because the weather is more like Iraq, not like here, it's really cold, and I have all my family here. So when he moved here, he was like, let's go to the South States, and then when he was talking to people, they were like, no, you should guys stay over there because it's more comfortable for your kids for growing up, even though like I know like Texas had so many like population of Middle Eastern there. But so when I read that, I was like, wow, why would they like be against code switching and stuff, since it's like, as you said, near Mexico, and I know like there's a lot of diversity in there. I really didn't like really get what the point of being against that anywhere, because like it's like here it's like everywhere there's everyone from everywhere. Why would we be against that? I don't get it at all. Like everywhere is coming from somewhere, which is not literally 100% is the United States. I barely met somebody who's really American, or like he was like the third or the fourth generation from America. They're most like immigrants or coming from in some kind of way and living here. So
So yeah, so
so
that's why it's a puzzle. Um, it is a puzzle. Does
If I
anyone
may,
Manny, you're from there. Not
rather no,
Texas.
no, I'm from Mexico. Yeah.
Mexico. You're not from Texas, but you're from Mexico.
Rather than
Mandy?
seeing it in a negative direction, like I don't know why it would be allowed or anything. The teachers, I think, know the struggle of not knowing English. They know the struggle of coming to the United States and not knowing the language, and that way they want to promote rather than keep using the Spanish for them to learn the English faster, because they, well, like I said before, they know the struggle of not knowing the language. So I believe that this influence of the Southern not code switching is because they feel that the students coming from Mexico to Texas, they were previously students as well. And they saw how much they struggle not knowing English, not knowing how to communicate with the population. So instead, like I said, of saying negatively, they want them to learn it faster. They want them to, in a bad way, assimilate faster.
Yeah, so that memory of being children themselves, struggling through that kind of supersedes their knowledge about the fact that code switching can actually be a good thing. Yeah, I think part of it is that I agree with you. And I think that being in Southern Texas is another interesting thing because it's near the border. And the politics around the border is so sensitive, and maybe there's influence from that. Then we have to wonder if there's some degree of coloniality. Um, I know that, and there's been plenty of research studies about this, the teachers who are the most negative about African American English tend to be the Black teachers. Not that others aren't, they are. But they find that the ones that are more insistent many times are Black themselves. So it is complicated. To put it in one word, it is complicated. And I think that all this would be helped again by being open from the very early stages of education about language. Thank you guys for sharing. I love to hear your insights about things. Thank you, thank you, thank you. Okay, so we're going to move on. Okay, so more ethnographic theory. Malinowski, way back in 1923, asserted that one could understand a language in its context of situation, arguing that meaning only comes from real and active participation in relevant situations. And the assignment that you're about to do really does put you, at least for a short time, in someone else's shoes, learning about the background behind the language and all of that. Okay. So I mentioned for the option number 1, the code switching assignment, that you would have to discuss what you observed in the context of Delheim's speaking model. Speaking is an acronym. The S stands for setting and scene. So you'll have to discuss the setting and the scene that you're observing. And the setting is time and place of a speech act. And in general, to the physical circumstances. Like if you're in someone's home, what room are you in? What are they doing? Who else is there? The scene is the psychological setting or the cultural definition of a scene. Okay, and after I go over this, I'm going to show you an example of how someone uses the speaking model to describe a speech act. Okay, the P is for participants. The participants are the speaker and the audience. Okay, the audience might be one person, it might be several people. Who are they? Are they family members? Is it the cashier at the store? Who is it? The ends. What is the purpose of the speech conversation? What are the purposes, the goals, and what are the outcomes? A is for act. The act sequence, the act sequence, the form and order of event of the discussion or piece of discourse. K is for key. That's cues that establish the tone, manner, or spirit of the speech act. I is for instrumentalities. That's the forms and styles, registers of speech. And this is something I need to show you today too. The 5 levels of speech register. Okay. N is for norms. What are the social rules? I mean, the social rules are not going to be written, but say if you're observing in a church, there's a set of rules that everyone understands. So what are the social rules governing the event and the participants' actions and reactions? Okay. Is the speaker talking to someone that's argumentative and because of the setting, they don't respond in kind, for example? Genre is the kind of speech act or event. So first I'm going to pull up the registers. I think I have that here. And then I'm going to pull up the example of the speaking model. So give me a second here. Aha, okay, show you the registers first. Okay. What I'm going to do is I'm going to put this and another register guide in D2L. All I have now is the examples of the levels of speech, the registers of speech, not the explanation. So the registers there are 5: frozen, formal, consultative, casual, and intimate. Okay. So frozen is basically like if someone is, say you're a tour guide and you basically say the same thing every time. Every time you're welcoming people for the tour, you say something you've memorized. Another example of frozen is a prayer, right? You say it the same way every time. So here's an example of frozen speech register. Welcome to the Hugh Brothers Industrial Center. where tomorrow's world meets today's. Please remember that no flash photography is allowed during this tour. Okay? That's probably the most rigid of all speech registers. The next level is formal. Okay? It's not frozen like a speech, but it's formal. Good morning. May I speak to the director, please? Okay. People are using their manners. This person used may I. Okay, very formal. The next level is consultative. Consultative and casual is kind of what you see at work. Hello, Mr. Smith. How are you this morning? Right? It's friendly, it's professional, it's not too formal. Then casual, hey, Jack, what's up? Right? That's what you would say to a friend or a classmate that you know well. Then the last level is called intimate. That's the language that we use with our girlfriend, boyfriend, spouse. If you are a twin or close with a sibling, that's the language that you use, that you would never use with like someone you just know casually in class or your boss, right? Or your professor. So an example is, how's my little snuggy buggy? Okay, and so this sheet I'm gonna put in D2L. It details how complaints look at every level, encouragement, okay? And then I'll also put the explanation sheet. Okay. So now let's look at an example of Delheim's speaking. Momentito. Oh. Okay, since I'm losing my voice, I'll have you guys take turns with this. So for those of you who are doing option 1, the code switching paper, this will be part of it. I'll read the introduction. Here is an example of one study that was conducted at a Puerto Rican center that was based on Heim's model in 1988. Within one communicative event, PRC board meetings, there were, and then we'll start. So Clarissa, can you read setting?
Setting. The setting was an old Victorian type building, 3rd floor, in the director's office. A table was in front of the room with folding chairs around it. Further in the room was the director's desk. Pictures and plaques covered the walls, and there was a clock on the wall near the door. The scene was the first Thursday of every month. The board directors of this nonprofit cultural center were assembled to meet for 1 hour in the early mornings to discuss and, when necessary, to vote on matters of importance to the functioning of the center.
Okay, thank you. So here we're putting a piece of discourse in context, okay? The person who wrote this also provided a piece of discourse of what the conversation was during this board meeting. But we also need to know the context, and that's what speaking gives us. Okay, so participants. Kay, can you read that one?
Yes. The potential participants for these meetings were the 13 board members, the staff, consultants, special invited guests, and the public at large. The actual participants at each meeting varied depending upon who showed up or asked to be present. The frequent labels used to address were board members and staff persons. In addition, the president of the board was addressed as Mr. President. Other board members, including the director, were likely to be addressed by first name only. A subset of board members, the executive committee, was also addressed as such and had special rights and responsibilities.
Okay, thank you. By the way, for those of you who are going to do option 3, which is an institutional ethnographic analysis where you might decide to record in a hotel lobby or a Starbucks or a social service center. I think it's a good idea when you analyze to use this speaking to give us some context. I think it's helpful. Okay, so ends. Is Hannah here? I thought Hannah was here. Derica, can you read that next one, ends? Evelyn? Uh-oh, are you guys here? Evelyn? If you can hear me, say something.
I don't think they're in the group anymore.
Oh, okay. Amanda?
I'm here.
Okay, okay.
So, and conversations were officially undertaken in order to conduct the business of the center. However, usually people spoke so as to get along with the others present and be counted as a member of the community.
Okay, thank you. And then Manny, can you read act?
The speech acts at the meetings were more frequently referred to as taking a vote or discussion. An unlabeled speech act was the small talk or joking that occurred at the beginning of the meeting as quorum. Another communicative act was being waited for. That is, the meeting could not officially begin until at least 8 of the 13 board members were present, quorum.
Okay, thank you. And Aya, can you read key?
I think she left.
Usma? You there, Aya?
No, I think she left.
Oh, okay. Is Usma there?
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah.
Can you
there were
read this
two.
last one that says key?
Mhm. There were two keys in which most conversation was conducted. The business key was official by the rules, Robert Rules of Order. The joking parts were light and friendly.
Okay, thank you. So now you should have an idea of how to use Delheim's speaking model to provide more context for any discourse that you're presenting. Okay. How did I lose so many students? Wait, what happened to everyone? Was I that boring? I don't know what
I
happened.
think we went over time.
No, we didn't. We did? No, we didn't go over time. Doesn't class end at
2:50.
Right. Okay. Well, thank you for staying the whole time, guys. Are there any questions, comments, or concerns? Okay. It's around midterm time. I know people get tired, but try to stick with it, okay? The rest of the semester is going to go very quickly. Reach out to me if you have any questions at all, and I will see you on Thursday.
Thank you, Professor. See you later.
Thank you, Professor.
Thank you. Bye-bye
Bye.
now.